Okay,
so good afternoon and welcome everyone. Greetings. So let's connect with our text. We're looking at the major outlines of the easy path. So the first one begins by saying how to properly develop correct devotion to the teacher, and then having developed devotion, proper reliance on the teacher, we have exhortation to extract the essence of this life, and then after that the actual way of extracting the essence of this life. In terms of how to take full advantage of this life, we have three: training the mind in the stages of the path shared with the person of the small capacity, then training in the path shared with the person of the middle capacity, and then training in the path that is shared in the path of the individual of the great capacity. So now when we come into the training of the individual of the great capacity, we see that we have two outlines: how to generate the mind of enlightenment and how to train in the contact generating it. So it's not enough just to generate it, but in addition to that, we have to train in the six perfections. Okay, so as you can see here, we're dealing with the practices of the individual of the great scope, and we say that the actual essence of this path is the mind of bodhicitta. So when we look at the mind of bodhicitta, we say that this is the essence, or it's the actual part. And there are many things that we consider to be preliminaries to this. So all the training that we have done that is shared with the individual of the small scope, the training that is shared with the individual of the middle scope, and then in addition to that, the various steps that are the causes in the sevenfold cause and result method, which are developing equanimity, recognizing all sentient beings as your mother, remembering the kindness, wishing to repay the kindness, the love of attraction, compassion, and special intention. All of these steps are the preliminaries. And from these preliminaries, we come to the actual part, which is the mind of bodhicitta. Having introduced this mind of bodhicitta, once you generate it, it is very important to engage in the six perfections and the four means of gathering disciples. Then, in addition to that, one would engage in the practices of Tantra by training in the generation and the completion stage. So these are different methods and means of increasing your bodhicitta once you have generated. Usually we recite the verse that says, may the precious bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase more and more. This verse actually reflects the order of the chapters that Master Shantideva has composed in Bodhisattva's Ways of Life. So in that particular text, that is a very famous text, we find that we have 3 chapters for generating bodhicitta, 3 chapters for means that will stop the decline of bodhicitta, 3 chapters that are relevant to the increase of bodhicitta, and then the final chapter is the chapter of prayers and dedications. So we talk here about the mind of bodhicitta, and often we say that this is a very precious mind. It is a mind that is hard to generate within your mind stream, but it is said that once you generate it, you have a realization as vast as the vastness of space. The reason for that is because we say that the entirety of existence is pervaded by space, and all space is pervaded by sentient beings. Compassion pervades sentient beings, and bodhicitta pervades that compassion. So once you generate the mind of bodhicitta, you have a realization that pervades the entire space. Also, the master Atisa used to say that in the future, if there is someone who is a bit disappointed because they think, oh, I haven't had the fortune to meet Master Atisha, for them, I have to say that you don't need to be disappointed. What you need to do is to meditate and practice to cultivate the mind of bodhicitta. This is, even if you had met me, I would not be able to give you any further or bigger instruction than this. And similarly, from the Kadampa Geshes, Geshe Potoa used to say, for those of you who say they have not met me, they have not met Geshe Dromtompa, they have not met Geshe Atisha, I have to say, do not be discouraged. Practice on the basis of pure ethics in order to develop the mind of bodhicitta. There is no other further instruction to give to you. So, as we say here, bodhicitta is very important. It's the essence of the Mahayana, and also bodhicitta is the entry to Mahayana. So, in other words, in order to engage any Mahayana path and to progress along the Mahayana grounds and paths, you need to generate the mind of bodhicitta. It's not just that bodhicitta is important at the beginning as the entry to Mahayana, but once you have entered the Mahayana, also you need to continuously cultivate and engage that mind of bodhicitta. So any other practices that you would do in order to progress along the grounds and paths have to be influenced by bodhicitta. So when you meditate on emptiness, it has to be influenced by bodhicitta. Even when you do the most advanced tantric practices, if you're doing the yoga of the channels, the winds and the drops, if you do generation and completion stage of any deity, unless those practices are influenced by bodhicitta, they do not become Mahayana practices. And therefore, it's very important to employ various means and methods to generate uncontrived bodhicitta. Okay, so in general, we say that in order to generate the mind of bodhicitta, we need to rely on the four conditions, the four causes, and the four strengths. Now, we're not going to go into detail in this because actually this can be consolidated into two causes. And the two causes are the sevenfold cause and effect method and the method of equalizing and exchanging self for others. The sevenfold cause and effect method is the one that steps from protector matriarch and it comes down through the lineage to master Asanga and so forth, whilst the method of equalizing and exchanging self for others begins from protector Manjushri down to master Nagarjuna and master Shantideva and so forth. So we mentioned here that there are two methods for generating bodhicitta. The final result, which is bodhicitta, there is no difference. It will be the same. However, in terms of the two lineages of instructions that we have, there is difference because it is said that the method of equalizing and exchanging self for others is more profound. Okay, if we look at the Lamrim mainly presents the sevenfold cause and effect method, and it also gives an indirect reference to the method of equalizing and exchanging self for others in the section of discussing the Lojong, the mind training. So that's the difference in the presentation. Okay, so we say that we're going through the sevenfold cause and effect method. So in this method, we have 6 causes and 1 effect or 1 result. So the 6 methods are, first of all, recognizing all sentient beings as your mother. The second one is remembering their kindness. The third one is wishing to repay the kindness. The fourth one is the love of attraction. The fifth one is compassion. And the sixth one is special intention. So when we use this term, the sevenfold cause and result method, what happens is actually we take number 5, which is compassion, to be the actual thing. And then we go backwards and we say, what are the causes for this compassion? The causes of this compassion are the 4 previous steps, which is remembering sentient beings as your mother, recognizing as sentient beings as your mother, remembering their kindness, wishing to repay their kindness, and the love of attraction. These 4 are the causes. Then we have compassion, which is the actual one, and then we're looking at the results of this, which is special intention and bodhicitta. So we say that when we look at great compassion, we identify the previous four steps as being its causes. So how do they act as its causes? When you have great compassion, you have that attitude that finds the thought that sentient beings experience suffering to be unbearable. So, by definition, compassion is the wish that all sentient beings be free from their suffering, right? And in order to have such a concern for sentient beings, you must find them very dear, you must find them very attractive. And therefore, the love of attraction has to come prior to having great compassion. And in order to have this sense of attraction, where you find all sentient beings as being very dear, very near to you, you must meditate in order to recognize the role that they have played for you when they acted as your mother. So we take the example of the mother because it is the ultimate example of someone who is very near and very dear to you. And once you recognize them as your mother, then you remember how kind they have been to you, and then you wish to repay their kindness. So this is how the first four steps, recognizing all sentient beings as your mother, remembering the kindness, wishing to repay the kindness, and the love of attraction, act as the causes for generating great compassion. Okay, so we have mentioned here that we have the first four steps acting as the causes for generating great compassion. Now, when we examine compassion is the wish that sentient beings be free from suffering. And then we have the other attitude, which is love which wishes sentient beings that have happiness. In terms of love and compassion, there is no definite order. Some people will generate love first and compassion later. Other people will generate compassion first and love later. However, when we talk about the love of attraction, this love of attraction must definitely precede both love and compassion. All right? So the love of attraction is a cause for both of them. Okay, once we have generated great compassion, we say that we get the two results of the special intention and bodhicitta. How are these generated? So once you have the great compassion, eventually you have to train your mind further so that you develop this braveness that says, I take it upon myself to carry the burden of liberating all sentient beings. And when that special sense of responsibility is generated, you generate the mind of special intention. Having generated the mind of special intention, you have a very strong wish to liberate all sentient beings. However, at this point, you realize that you don't have the capacity to help even one single sentient being, let alone all sentient beings. So you start asking the question, who has the power to bring about the benefit of all sentient beings at all times, in any situation, to bring about any temporary and ultimate benefit of sentient beings? Only a Buddha has the power to do that. Therefore, I must become a Buddha in order to benefit sentient beings. So this is how you end up with generating bodhicitta after you have developed special intention. So first of all, we have introduced this idea that bodhicitta is very important and very precious, and then we have explained how we need to train in order to develop it, and we have two lines of instruction, the sevenfold cause and effect, and the training of equalizing and exchanging self for others. So if you now go into the root text, the easy path, at the bottom of page 20, you'll see we have training the mind in the stages of the path of persons of great capacity. So this has two subdivisions: how to generate the mind for enlightenment and how to train in the bodhisattva conduct generating it. For the first one, how to generate the mind for enlightenment, we have the actual way of generating the mind of enlightenment and how to adopt the mind of enlightenment through the ritual. For the first one, right? Again, we have two subdivisions: generating the mind for enlightenment through the 7 cause and effect instruction, and generating the mind for enlightenment through equalizing and exchanging self for others. As for the first outline, after having achieved an impartial mind towards all sentient beings, one is meant to meditate from recognizing all sentient beings as one mother till the mind of bodhicitta. All right, so what it says here is that when you practice in the sevenfold cause and effect method, you begin by generating the mind of equanimity. And having generated the mind of equanimity, you begin with the first step, which is recognizing sentient beings to be your mother, then remembering the kindness, wishing to repay the kindness, the love of attraction, great compassion, special intention, and finally bodhicitta. All right, so as you can see here, we have the outline. So for the first outline, it says, having achieved the impartial mind of all sentient beings, one is meant to meditate from recognizing all sentient beings as well as mother till the mind of bodhicitta. To do this, there are two outlines: how to practice during the formal meditation session and how to practice during the intervals between sessions. So for the first one, how to practice during the formal meditation session, this consists of preparation, actual practice, and conclusion. So we have seen this way of structuring the material all the way up to now. It says you have the actual session, period in between sessions. For the actual session, you always have 3 parts: the preliminaries, the actual part, and the conclusion. So regarding the preparation, one is meant to make supplications as before, with a prayer ending with, I make request to you, Buddha Vajradhara, the Supreme Guru Yidam, synthesis of all objects of refuge. So remember that we go through the 6 preliminary practices, and the 6th one is making supplications, making these requests. The different ways of making the requests, and we come up to the point of the last request. We have 3 ways of making requests, and up to this point everything is the same in all the sessions. But once you finish with this request up to this point where it says Buddha Vajradhara, the Supreme Guru Yidam, synthesis of all the objects of refuge, then you're going to make a specific request in relation to what is going to be your main meditation session. So because your main meditation session is going to be about this practicing the method of the sevenfold cause and effect, the special request that you will do here is in relation to be successful for this meditation. So it says, I beseech you, Supreme Guru Yidam, bless us so that the special realization of an impartial attitude, free of attachment and aversion, which makes you feel close and distant towards all sentient beings, recognizing all sentient beings as one mother, remembering their kindness, repaying their kindness, love, compassion, and bodhicitta, can be generated in all sentient beings' minds as well as mine. So you see, the main practice begins with equanimity and then goes through the 6-fold, the 7-fold cause and result method. So exactly, we're requesting that we are going to be successful in this way. So due to this fervent request from the body of Guru Yidam, at the crown of your head descends nectar together with 5 colors of light, which enter in you as well as in all mother sentient beings' bodies and minds. It purifies all negativities and obscurations collected from beginningless time. In particular, it purifies all spirits, illnesses, obscurations, and negativities that hinder the generation of an impartial attitude, free of attachment and aversion, which makes you feel close and distant towards all sentient beings, and so forth. So in this so forth, you understand that there are all the steps, the sevenfold. After equanimity, we have the actual steps from beginning from remembering that they have been your mothers all the way up to bodhicitta. Okay, our bodies become limpid, clear, and luminous. All good qualities such as merits, lifespan, and so forth improve and expand. In particular, imagine that an impartial attitude, free of attachment and aversion, which makes you feel close and distant towards all sentient beings and so forth, is generated in all of our minds. So this is the preliminaries, and after this we have the actual part. Yeah. Okay, so as you can see here, we continue. It says, as for the actual practice, whilst meditating on the Guru Yidam on the top of your head and so forth. So the Lamrim here, the easy path, does not give any other outlines. However, if we go into Lamrim Chenmo, it gives a very good classification through outlines that is very useful to have. So it says, when we engage the seven cause and effect in method for generating bodhicitta, you can break it down into three major outlines. The first outline is training the mind to be intent on others' welfare. The second outline is training the mind to be intent on enlightenment. And the third outline is identifying the spirit of enlightenment, bodhicitta, the fruit of the training. Okay, so for the first one, which is training the mind to be intent on others' welfare, this is actually the training that goes from equanimity all the way down to special intention. Then for the second outline, which is training the mind to the intent of enlightenment, is from special intention onwards. Okay, for the first one, training the mind to be intent on others' welfare, we have two outlines: establishing the basis for developing the attitude and the development of attitude of being intent on others' welfare. So in terms of establishing the basis, first of all, we have achieving impartiality towards living beings, and then having affection for all beings. In having affection for all beings, we have recognition that all beings have been your mothers, remembering the kindness and the wish to repay the kindness. Then in the development of the attitude of being intent on others' welfare, we have cultivation of love, cultivation of compassion, and cultivation of special intention. Okay, so as we say, for the first part, which is training the mind to be intent on others' welfare, we have two parts. We have establishing the basis for developing the attitude, and we have the actual development of attitude of being intent on others' welfare. So when we establish the basis for developing the attitude, we have two parts. The first one is achieving equanimity, and the other one is having the affection for sentient beings. In order to have the affection, you must develop this recognition of all sentient beings have been your mother, remembering the kindness and wishing to repay the kindness. But as we say, everything begins with developing equanimity. All right, so in order to develop equanimity, we have to begin the meditation by choosing an appropriate focal object. Now, the way that we usually categorize people, we say that someone is a friend if they benefit us. We say that someone is an enemy if they have caused us some harm. And then we say that someone is like a neutral person, almost like a stranger, if they have neither benefited us or caused any harm to us. So to begin the training in equanimity, it says that we have to focus on a person that is neutral, almost like a stranger to us, because this is the easiest object in order to develop equanimity. If you try to begin your training by focusing on an enemy or a friend, it will be very difficult. So you choose someone who is a completely neutral person, and you say, in all my lifetimes since beginningless times, this person countless times has been my friend and has benefited me. But also countless times this person has been my enemy and has caused me serious harm. As for this very life, this person is almost like a stranger, is completely neutral to me. They have neither benefited me, nor have they harmed me. So when I look at this role, how these roles of the friend, the enemy, the stranger change over the course of those countless lifetimes, I see that it is inappropriate for me to have these categories and say, this is the friend, this is the enemy, this is the stranger. It is totally inappropriate. It's unacceptable. It's a partiality for no reason. Okay, so let's look now at the easy path. How do we perform this meditation on equanimity? You will see at the top of page 22, it says, as for the actual practice, while meditating on the Guru Yidam on the top of your head, so remember that in the preliminaries we have visualized, we have invited and visualizing the Guru at the top of the head. So whilst you're doing this, and aiming at a neutral person who does not do any benefit or harm visualized in front of you, contemplate as follows. Since from this neutral person's side, he or she wishes for happiness and does not wish for suffering, I will practice an impartial attitude free of attachment and aversion, which makes you feel close and distant and devoid of the two aspects of wishing to harm some beings due to having considered them as distant and wishing to benefit some other beings due to having considered them as close. I beseech you, Guru Yidam, bless us so that we can practice in this way. So as we say, you begin by focusing on a neutral person, and we are going to use here two ways of reasoning. The first way of thinking is that from their own side, this neutral person, right, everybody is exactly the same. Everybody is exactly equal. From their own side, every sentient being that you meet, they do not want to have any suffering, and all of them want to have happiness. So they are completely equal from their side in that sense. There's no one who stands out and says, I want to have suffering, I don't want to have happiness. So they're all equal in their wish to avoid suffering and to experience happiness. But also when we examine it from our own side and we say, if I examine this person who is a neutral person, since beginningless time, many times they have benefited me as my friend. Countless times they have harmed me as my enemy. Therefore, there is no one who is 100% friend all the time, no one who is 100% enemy all the time. Therefore, from my perspective, it is inappropriate to have this sense of partiality that says I consider some of them to be near, some of them to be far and distant. All right, so this is how we meditate, taking into consideration the situation from their side and from our side to develop equanimity. Okay, so as you can see, we begin this meditation in order to develop equanimity by focusing on someone who's a neutral person. And as we perform the meditation, occasionally we also direct our prayers and we make a request to the Guru who is at the crown of our head. So you can see here in the second paragraph of page 22, once it explains, how we focus on the neutral person, it finishes by saying, I beseech you, Supreme Guru Yidam, bless us so that we can practice in this way, and so forth. So we meditate on the neutral person to develop equanimity, but also we ask the Guru to help us in this way. Then we move into the next phase, which is now focusing on a person that is really dear to us. You could choose your mother, or you could choose someone that you really, really like. Okay, so now this is going to become the object with which you will practice in order to develop equanimity. And you begin by thinking, if we read the actual part in our text, it says, once you have gained proficiency with this type of person, the neutral person, meditate on an impartial attitude aiming at a dear acquaintance, visualizing in front of you. Partiality towards this type of person is due to attachment. Meditating, stopping attraction towards this type of a person by thinking that even in the past you are born in samsara due to craving. So you're looking at this person and you are aware that you have great attachment for this person. And the reason is that you recognize this person has helped you, has been your friend, has benefited you in many ways. So you say, I recognize here that I have partiality. I really favor this person. However, this favoritism that I show is due to attachment. And since beginningless time, attachment has been the cause for me to be reborn in cyclic existence. Therefore, I have to neutralize or I have to minimize this attachment. So you can begin thinking that in countless lifetimes, this person has actually acted as your enemy. As your enemy, they have harmed you, they have done things wrong for you. So you use this type of thinking in order to minimize your attachment for this person. So once you have developed equanimity by focusing on the person that you really like, you change your focal object and now you choose to focus on a person that you really dislike, someone that you find very unattractive, someone that you find very irritating, like your worst enemy, someone that you just see them and as soon as you see them from distance, you become very angry. So now this is the object for developing equanimity. And you start thinking, okay, I really dislike this person because they have done this and this and this and this. However, in my previous lifetimes, this person has been kind to me. This person has been very kind to me in every possible way, many times, again and again. Therefore, this partial attitude that I have for them, which is limited from these recent experiences, is unjustified. Not only that, but due to the anger that I have for this person, I am not able to generate the mind of bodhicitta. Therefore, I have to overcome this anger and I have to overcome this partial attitude towards this enemy. So you start training in this way to generate equanimity towards the enemy. Okay, so if we look at the part of the text that covers the meditation focusing on the enemy, once you have gained proficiency with this type of person, meditate with an impartial attitude, aiming at an acquaintance that you don't like and whom you visualize in front of you. Impartiality towards this type of person is due to the aversion developed from the mental attitude considering this type of person as uniquely discordant, unpleasant. Meditate stopping aversion towards this type of person by thinking that if I don't succeed in developing an impartial attitude towards this type of person, there is no way for bodhicitta to be generated. Okay, so far you have meditated on the neutral person, you have meditated on the one that you really like, and you have meditated on the enemy. Now you bring in front of you the one that you like most and the one that you hate most, right? So let's say someone like your mother and someone like your worst enemy. So once you have gained proficiency with this type of person, meditating, aiming at an extremely dear person, like one's mother, and a person you particularly dislike, like one's enemy, visualized in front. They are similar, since both, from their perspective, wish for happiness and shun suffering. So you say from their own side, my best friend and my worst enemy, they are the same in terms of both wishing to avoid suffering and both of them wishing to have happiness. From our perspective, the person we consider so dear to us now has been countless times our main enemy in this beginningless samsara. So this very dear friend has been my enemy many times. In a similar way, the person we consider our enemy now has been countless times our mother in this beginningless samsara and has taken care of us with love. So the enemy has been very kind like a mother many times. Who is then the one we should love and who is the one we should hate? I will develop an impartial attitude, free of attachment and aversion, which makes you feel close and distant. So you see, first you meditate on the neutral person, then on someone that you really like, then on someone you really dislike, and then you bring both the one you like and don't dislike in front of you, and you use this argument that they're exactly the same from their side, they are the same from my side, therefore I should not have partiality. And at the end, you keep praying. So I beseech you, Supreme Guru Yidam, bless us so that we can practice in this way, and so forth. Okay, so far we have been training to develop equanimity by focusing on a single individual. So we started with the neutral, then the friend, then the enemy, and then we had the pair of friend and enemy. So when you become proficient and you are able to develop equanimity dealing with individuals, then you take this training to the next level. So you now are going to be focusing on all sentient beings, so a much larger number of sentient beings. So it says, once you have gained proficiency with this type of person, meditate cultivating impartiality towards all sentient beings. To do this, reflect on how all sentient beings are similar in that from their perspective, they all wish for happiness and shun suffering. So again, the same reasoning, they're all equal from their perspective because they all equally want happiness and equally want to avoid suffering. From our perspective, since they all have been dear to us, I will not sustain the two attitudes of benefiting some of them because of considering them close and harming others because of considering them distant. I beseech you, Supreme Guru Yidam, bless us so that we can practice in this way, and so forth. Okay, so we make the request, and where it says so forth, we have the visualization of descent of nectars and blessings from the Guru as before. Okay, so as you can see here, we are dealing with this attitude of partiality that we have. Partiality means that we consider some to be far away. So the closeness is because we consider that person to be benefiting us, and the distance comes because we consider that person to be harmful. But the thing is that when we consider someone to be beneficial and friendly, we consider them to be 100% friendly or, you know, solidly benefiting. And when we consider someone to be an enemy, harmful, we consider them to be a solid enemy, like 100% an enemy. But this is not true. So Geshe was saying, I'll give you an example which is easy to understand. So imagine that you're dealing with two people. You've met two people today. One of them was really nice to you. He invited you for a meal. He bought you the best food. He gave you a present. He showered you with pleasant words and praise and so forth. Right? And you walked out of that restaurant feeling, oh, you know, what a nice person. He's a real friend. Then you met the other person, and the other person, as soon as they saw you, they started scolding you, and they even got to the point of hitting you and saying the most unpleasant things to you. So you go back home and you think, you know, one person was so nice to me today, and the other person was really horrible. That's an enemy. Come the next day, and even when you see that person from a distance, you say, oh, that was my good friend. And when you see the other person, oh, you know, that horrible person. However, the next day, they treat you in a completely opposite way. So the one who was your friend now sees you from a distance and starts scolding you and ends up beating you up. Whilst the one who was your enemy yesterday sees you today and says, okay, come on, let's go and have a nice meal, and gives you a present and says nice things to you. So it's like this, right? Who you're going to like and who are going to dislike. Okay, so when we meditate here on equanimity, it's very good to take ourselves as an example. And I say, look, for myself, I do not wish to have any suffering. I only wish to have well-being and happiness. From the moment I open my eyes in the morning till the end of the day, everything that I do is to avoid suffering and to experience happiness. And just as I act in this way, similarly, all other sentient beings are exactly the same. So we are all equal in this way. So why is it that I treat them differently? Why is it that I feel so close to some? And why is it that I feel so distant to others? It is unfounded, and therefore I should treat them all in the same way. I should treat everyone with equanimity. This attachment and hatred that I have, this attitude that brings me close to some and very distant from others, is actually very bad. It creates a lot of problems and it creates a lot of obstacles. As long as I have this attachment and hatred, I'm not able to generate equanimity. But equanimity is actually the basis for developing all the necessary qualities of the Mahayana, the basis for developing the mind of bodhicitta. Therefore, this is a big obstacle that I have to eliminate. So make the strong determination in your mind, like make the promise in your mind and be resolute and say, I will give up treating people with attachment and hatred. I will give up my equanimity. I will treat everyone in the equal way. So as we say, this is the way to train. First of all, we train by focusing on a neutral person. Then you train by focusing on someone who is very dear to you. Then on someone who is the worst enemy. Then you compare the dear friend with the worst enemy. And then you expand to all sentient beings. So this is how the training in equanimity is developed. Okay, so this is the way that we train in order to develop equanimity. So remember that achieving this impartiality towards all sentient beings is part of establishing the basis for developing the mind that is intent on others' benefit. After that, we have to develop the affection for all sentient beings, and we do this by recognizing sentient beings as being our mothers, remembering the kindness and wishing to repay the kindness. So the next step that we have to do is recognizing all sentient beings as being our mother. Okay, so having trained in equanimity, we move into the next step, which is recognizing all sentient beings to be our mother. From our text, it says, after this, the way to meditate from the topic of recognizing all sentient beings as one mother till bodhicitta is as follows. While meditating on the Guru Yidam on the top of your head, contemplate as follows. What's the reason for saying that all sentient beings have been dear to us? Since samsara is beginningless, also our rebirths are beginningless. Having taken one rebirth after the other, there is no place where we have not been born. In fact, we have been reborn in every place countless times. There is no rebirth we have not taken. In fact, we have taken any type of rebirth countless times. There is no being who has not been our mother. Okay, so here we have to establish that we have had countless rebirths, and every other sentient being has had countless rebirths. And we need to use a particular reasoning for this. Okay, so let's say you did a certain number of things yesterday. Today, you remember what you did yesterday. Also today, as an adult, you remember a lot of the things that you did or that happened to you when you were a young kid. The reason for that is because the mind that you have presently as an adult is the continuum of the same mind that you had yesterday, of the same mind that you had when you were a small kid. So what we recognize here is that is a continuity of mind. And this is why we have memory of past events, isn't it? Okay, so then we want to go back into the point of a human just be born, like a newborn baby. Or even if we don't look at humans, if we look at animals. So let's look at the calf of a cow that has just been born. So you will see that the newborn actually instinctively is looking for the breast of the mother in order to drink milk. No one is actually teaching the newborn how to look for the milk. And it is something that they do straight away after birth. And they do this due to the power of familiarity. So this power of familiarity indicates that there have been previous rebirths. So we have taken many rebirths. If we have taken one rebirth prior to this one, we have taken a rebirth prior to that one, and prior to that one, and prior to that one. It's exactly the same reasoning that establishes this continuity of the mind. So every time we have had a rebirth, especially rebirth as in from an egg or rebirth, birth from the womb, we had to have a mother. So just as we had countless rebirths going backwards, every other sentient being has had countless rebirths. And because we have taken rebirth so many times, someone has had to act as a mother in each one of those rebirths. And therefore we say that every sentient being has played the role of the mother who has raised us with kindness again and again. So if we look closely at our text, we are doing the last paragraph on page 23. What's the reason for saying that all sentient beings have been dear to us? Since samsara is beginningless, also our rebirths are beginningless. So we have had beginningless rebirth in samsara. Having taken one rebirth after the other, there is no place where we have not been born. So there is no country and no location in which we have not been born there. In fact, we have been reborn in every place countless times. There is no rebirth we have not taken. In fact, we have taken any kind of rebirth countless times. So there is not one particular type of body that we have not taken in which we have not taken rebirth. We have done every body countless times. There is no being who has not been our mother. So everyone has acted as our mother. In fact, each of them has been our mother countless times. There is no being who has not been our mother in human form. In fact, each of them has been our mother in human form countless times and will be again in the future. Reflect thinking that they must be the mothers who took care of us with kindness. So this is how we contemplate to establish that they have all played the role of the mother to us. Okay, so having actually said that every sentient being has been our mother, then various doubts arise in the mind. Okay, so if you turn over in the next page, page 24, it says, one may raise the qualm saying that, well then, since sentient beings are countless, they cannot all be our mother. All right, so someone says, wait a minute, sentient beings are countless. And if they are countless, they cannot be our mother. So this is not a good reason. This does not necessarily mean that they cannot be our mother. Like beings are countless, so are rebirths. Contemplate thinking they must be our mothers. So sentient beings are countless. Our rebirths are also countless. So why do you have a problem? Why do you bring as a reason the fact that the sentient beings are countless? It says they cannot be your mother, right? Being countless does not exclude them logically from being our mother. Okay. Then again, one might have another type of doubt. If one wanders thinking that sentient beings and ourselves don't recognize or don't know each other, and so they cannot be our mother, so one might say, hold on a minute, if someone is my mother, I should know that person, I should recognize that person as being my mother. Then this again is not a good reason. Not recognizing each other does not necessarily mean that they are not our mother. Reflect thinking that even in this same life, there are many cases of mothers and children who don't recognize each other. So remove any doubts with logic. Okay, so one might have a different type of doubt. So once more, one may wonder thinking that although sentient beings may have been our mothers in previous lives, that has passed, and therefore thinking that our mother is not tenable. Then it also follows that yesterday's mother is not today's mother, since yesterday has passed. So someone says, okay, sentient beings have been my mothers, that was in the past, but these past lives have finished, right? Now I'm in another life. So it's not correct to think that they are my mothers. So the logic against that is to say, the logical argument is to say, okay, your mother of yesterday is finished, has passed, yesterday has passed, is finished, but still you recognize that person as being your mother today, all right? So between yesterday's mother and today's mother, there is no difference in terms of being our mother or in terms of taking care of us with kindness. Furthermore, there is no difference between our previous life's mother and this life's mother, and there is no difference between the two of them of taking care of us with kindness. So reflect, thinking that all sentient beings must be our mothers. So actually they say that when we look at the Lamrim, the two most difficult topics, the two most difficult realizations to generate is the proper way to rely upon the teacher and to recognize all sentient beings as your mother. So for that reason, we must put a lot of effort in generating the recognition of sentient beings as our mothers. If we can generate this, then the following steps of remembering the kindness, wishing to repay the kindness, and the love of attraction will easily follow. So in order to generate this initial realization that all sentient beings have been our mothers, we need to make a lot of effort, we need to purify negativity, and we need to accumulate merit. Okay, so we are going to wrap up for tonight. So from the sevenfold cause and effect method, we talked about the first step, which is equanimity, and equanimity is the basis really. And then the first actual step, which is recognizing all sentient beings as being our mother. Actually, in order to truly understand this point, it is important that we establish the existence of past and future lives. So this is the difficult point. And again, you can see that's why, it is difficult to establish that all sentient beings have been your mothers. So there are different types of logic that establish the existence of past and future lives. In Namdrel, in the second chapter, we have 5 types of reasoning that establish past and previous lives. And the easiest or the most clear one, easy and therefore easiest for us to understand, is the reason of previous moment of similar type. So when we talk about previous moment of similar type, when we talk about the mind, we talk about awareness. We say that the mind that we have right now as adults, as an adult today, was preceded by a previous moment of awareness that was of similar type. And we trace this all the way back to our childhood. And then when we get to childhood, we want to go very, very early at the moment of conception. And you say, okay, at the moment of conception, when you have that embryo has a mind. So the question is, where did this mind, where did the awareness of the embryo came from? You cannot say that it just started there, that it didn't have a previous moment. You cannot say that it is causeless. And you cannot say that the substantial cause for this new awareness, new for this life, is something which is physical, something which is other than awareness. If you make any of these assumptions, then you're making a big mistake. And this will become apparent because there will be a lot of contradictions in your logical thinking. So when we talk about previous moment of similar type, basically we establish that we have a continuum of similar moments, right? And therefore we say it is not causeless and it does not come from a permanent cause and it does not come from something which is dissimilar. So once you are able to establish that the first moment of awareness of this life came from a previous moment of awareness, that means you have established awareness or the existence of the previous life. And then you trace back the moments of awareness of the previous life, and that establishes the life prior to that and prior to that and prior to that. So then you can establish that you have beginningless continuity of awareness. Just as you establish it for yourself, you establish it for everybody else. And therefore you say, since I had beginningless lives, I had beginningless rebirths, every other sentient being who had beginningless life has acted as a mother to me. So this is the logic that we follow. So for today, we first of all introduced the importance and the preciousness of bodhicitta, and then we said that in terms of training to develop bodhicitta, we have two methods: the method of the sevenfold cause and effect, and the method of equalizing self and others. When we talk about the sevenfold cause and effect method, this terminology comes from taking compassion as the main one, and then we're looking at the causes of this compassion and then the result of this compassion. In terms of the causes of this compassion, today we talked about equanimity and recognizing all sentient beings as being our mothers. So we're going to stop here for tonight.